In episode number 358 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover even more Young Justice ever since the movement of Give Us More. Well, Young Justice got renewed for season 4.
And my most anticipated movie this year is The Joker. We have its upcoming debut at Toronto.
Our comic book highlight this week is the very anticipated Batman Curse of the White Knight #1.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am Rocket Daniel.
Team Rocket?
That's right, Team Rocket.
We got to spin on some things, and you can't move once you start spinning. I am your Emperor Kelli, which, by the way, I changed my Google email, so my name would be Emperor Kelli when I went to use it and things, and when I email people, it says Emperor.
Way to go. That's professional.
Sorry. You're real professional, right?
If to anyone new to the show, the way we format it is first we go through some news. We head into our Patreon shoutouts, which are thank yous for everyone that make the show possible. We go into our comic book highlight of the week, and then we finish it with the Brokehead block, which is where Kelli and I have been.
Starting off with some awesome news for all of our gamers out there. Arcade 1UP has opened pre-orders for a special arcade cabinet edition of Marvel Superheroes in celebration of the 80 years of Marvel Entertainment.
So this limited edition arcade cabinet does feature exclusive artwork and a light-up marquee limited to only 8,000 pieces. The cabinet also includes Marvel Superheroes, X-Men Children of the Atom, and the Punisher video game. So it's 3 in 1. This is really X-Men Children of the Atom was the first Capcom controlled Marvel game where they actually made them into a fighting type of game. And they even used those pixels for many sequels since then. But it's what started that whole Marvel versus Capcom type of game, fast gameplay. It all started here.
Was that the Welcome to Die game?
No, that's a 2D beat 'em up, but this was like an actual, kind of like Street Fighter.
Okay.
So I don't know if you remember the Marvel vs. Capcom games. But obviously you had Street Fighters, which are a little bit slower than your normal type of fighting game. You had X-Men Children of the Atom, which was essentially Street Fighter, but with with X-Men characters. Then you had X-Men versus Street Fighter, and then eventually Marvel versus Capcom. So this is where it all really began, and the Marvel Superheroes one is what expanded it to more than just the X-Men. Obviously, it was the X-Men at the beginning because they were so popular at the time that this game released.
Sounds like a big pile of who cares.
Arcade 1UP has tempted me in the past. They did a Galaga arcade cabinet.
Wow.
Which is going for $300 right now. This one is $400, includes a custom riser, which essentially gets the arcade up higher to a more, I guess, proper height for gameplay, or at least makes it sit higher. Obviously, you can make your own riser, and I know the Angry Video Game Nerd, he has a couple of friends that do mess around with arcade cabinets. They do modifications of old ones and fix them, and they've reviewed these and said that they're pretty good for casual arcade gamers, or if you want some of that arcade experience. But for people that do constantly play on the arcades and are used to it, they end up replacing these controls for more sturdy ones, something that'll last a little bit longer. But given that you're getting the whole cabinet, the TV, the game, and everything for $300 to $400, that's where you save on the controls and on a little bit of the quality as far as long-term gameplay or long-term, really, abuse, I guess.
Is that why you ultimately skipped on the Galaga one?
That, and I wouldn't really have a place for it here, and I wouldn't play it just like any other video game anymore. So it would be neat to have, though, just as something to have on in the background and to hear those old arcade noises coming out of it. And now they have features on it like volume control all kinds of neat things that you don't normally have unless you're the arcade operator.
Right. That's pretty cool. If you're interested in this game, if you're not a who cares like me, the price point seems pretty manageable, so check it out.
We also got CBS releasing a huge trailer. It got everyone talking. People at the comic shop were talking about it, and it was the full trailer to their all-access show, Picard.
I don't want the game to end. I can see that, Captain.
I have chills. So many. Like, I'm ready. I didn't even know I needed this, and I'm so ready.
So if you've seen the trailer, you've seen that there are many characters coming back, and then there's new characters as well. Brent Spiner as Data, coming straight out of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yes.
And then Jerry Ryan as Seven of Nine, who was in Voyager, right?
Yep.
So there's a couple of different Star Trek crossovers that are happening with Picard. And I know some people have shit on the look of Brent Spiner as Data, and that's one of the reasons why he did not want to do Data ever again, because Data doesn't age, and he's obviously aging.
Right.
It looked fucking fine.
Yeah.
Anyone that was complaining about it, I prefer this makeup, which looked great, compared to them fully CGIing him a la Star Wars that Disney had been doing lately.
Well, and it looks like the way they, give it away, I don't know, in the trailer, is that Data gave his life for Picard.
Which I think happened in one of the movies,
right.
yeah.
So, yeah, it could totally make sense that he looks different now, right? They got to piece him back together. They got to make him different. They have to do all these things, and now we have new technology, so it's not just going to be cookie cutter. So, sure, make him old. Like, whatever.
Well, he doesn't even look that old.
Right.
He just looks, as you mentioned, a little bit rounder in the face, but that's probably a combination of prosthetics and aging.
Right.
But to me, he's still, I'm like, that's fucking Data. Like, they absolutely nailed it. Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes will be guest starring as Deanna Troi and Will Riker. Yes. The one thing I had on it is I wanted, one, a love interest for Picard, because he has to sleep with someone.
Okay, but he's like 70 now.
Would that stop anyone?
No.
Okay, then. And
wouldn't
two,
stop me.
the newer crew members look lame. I'm like, who the fuck are these assholes?
Of course they're
nobodies.
probably really lame.
These pieces of shit.
Where's LeVar Burton? What's he doing right now?
He'll eventually show up,
He
I'm
better.
sure. I'm sure he will.
He's not doing shit.
The other thing, too, is, and maybe I need to watch the show, but from what I got on the trailer, it did not feel like Captain Picard. It felt more like Patrick Stewart than it did the actual character. And I think that's because I'm so used to Next Gen, where he plays it so, straight, and he's the captain, and he's very controlled and reserved. Here, it seemed like he was just more or less enjoying himself as Picard. Like, he even smiles like, engage. And it's like, I don't know, I kind of wanted more of that Picard.
Yeah, but, okay, two things I'll say to that is, one, this is the Picard coming back after 20 years. This is a Picard, just like he says in the trailer, where he spent 20 years trying to fit into a place where he doesn't, to be something that he's not. So yeah, stepping back into that, he would be enjoying himself 100%, because now he's doing what he loves again. Now he's getting that opportunity, and we don't quite know the situations that lead up to it yet, right? He's going to protect somebody. And I guess Starfleet is just like, yeah, sure, 70-year-old Picard. Like, take this giant spaceship and do what you do best, right? Go fight the Borg or whatever. So I don't think his smile is out of character. But second, even if it is just Patrick Stewart being Patrick Stewart, he's earned that.
That's true.
He can do whatever the hell he wants after all the great years of Picard we got, and then him agreeing to come back and do this again so that we can see all our old friends. Sure, whatever. He could be Xavier. He could be Charles Xavier.
Comes out in a wheelchair.
And I would be okay with it.
You mentioned the Borg earlier. Would you say that that's his main adversary just in general in his life? He was acquired, what do they call it, assimilated by the Borg.
Yeah.
And then one of the movies, I don't know if it was Generations or one of them, he kind of fights that again, where the Borg are back and he loses control, and that's where he tells the other human that was from the present, I believe, and they brought her back, or she was frozen in time or whatever, but she's the one who's like, bullshit, I see the way you look at them things. And that's when he turns and breaks the glass, and he's like, never, I want to see those pieces of shit die, and he kind of loses his cool. Would you say the Borg are his main baddies?
I don't know that I would, and I feel like I'm saying that because growing up I watched so much more of Voyager, and Voyager focused more on the Borg than Next Gen did. So I don't know, you might have a better understanding of that than I do because of that, but like growing up and also with Voyager, I have that nostalgia, right? Because I was like 9. I don't even know how old I was. I was little, and the Borg were like this huge, big, bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the graphics were a little bit better in Voyager. And then I was much older. I was an adult when I watched all of Next Gen through with you. So I don't know. I feel like he had other ones that he went, like, I feel like Q is probably his biggest adversary because he was fucking the most shit up.
He was always annoyed by him too. He was
Yeah.
like, Q, what is it this time?
I hope Q comes back and he's really old and they're like, Q, why'd you make yourself old? And he's like, all of you were doing it. Like,
I love that he was just the kazoo of Star Trek.
Yes, 100%.
Kazoo! Yeah, I think Q was huge. He would always show up like once per season and screw things up. I mean, even if you look at like the Ferengi or the Klingons or the Cardassians, they were like
or the Kardashians.
so lower level compared to the Borg that he constantly ran circles around them anyway and
Right.
out diplomated them, or in the Klingons' case, he would just outman them to the point where he earned their respect. And that was kind of the way he did things. He always called people's bluffs and very rarely threw a punch.
Right.
And I can't wait to see more of that in this. And I hope it is more Next Generation, as the producer has said, and less of modern Star Trek that we're seeing in Discovery.
I really think, so they're introducing all these new characters, right? And I think that's more of kind of maybe a safety net for themselves in the show, because depending on feedback, right, depending on viewership, now you can take it either way. So people come back and say, hey, we really like seeing the old cast, and you say, cool, next season half the new cast is gone, right? Or they say, oh, we really like these characters that you've created, and you still keep your core old cast, but then you go in the direction with the new cast. Or maybe Patrick Stewart finally realizes he's too old to do these things, and then you have to go in a different direction. So I really think that the newer cast is a safety net for them, but also kind of an easier way to advance the plot than just having the old guys.
Picard is set to release on CBS All Access in 2020.
I'm so ready.
That's when we will watch it, but as I said before, we're going to wait for the season to finish, and then we'll get the Blu-ray. Or if they don't make a Blu-ray available, then I'll buy the season digitally if I have to. But yeah, I don't want to have to sign on for CBS. I'll just wait for the physical release.
Moving on over to both the comic book world and San Diego Comic-Con.
So much news.
So much news. They announced this week at San Diego Comic-Con, Mary Jane Watson is set to get her own solo title at Marvel Comics titled, quote, The Amazing Mary Jane, end quote. Stoners out there are like, I got Amazing Mary Jane. Why would they title it? I can't. Continue, please.
So this is written by Leah Williams, who worked on Age of X-Men Extremists, with art from Carlos Gomez, who worked on Red Sonja.
The solicitation reads, quote, The webhead's favorite redhead is taking a chance on her dreams. But if you've read ASM number 25, you know that Mysterio is behind Mary Jane's big shot and someone worse is behind him, end quote.
I do want to give this a shot. I don't remember. It's been a long time before we've had a comic that solely focused on Mary Jane. And it was never titled The Amazing Mary Jane, but we've had some of the all-ages graphic novels or issues that have come out in the past. But this looks like something that it's like, all right, it's different enough. And it's from a way different perspective than what we've gotten in the Spidey universe, at least. The closest, I guess, would be Spider-Gwen with Gwen Stacy, but she's still a superhero. Or even the Spider-Man series, in which it's the family unit, Mary Jane, Peter Parker, and then their daughter, which was Renew Your Vows, but that wasn't just focused on Mary Jane. And even then, she was still a superhero. So I don't know if this is going to go the same route of eventually Marvel's going to cancel it as soon as sales dip a little bit and they'll just relaunch and replace it with a new number one. Most likely it will be, but for now I'm along for the ride and hopefully the quality is there.
That's the best you can hope for. We'll see. I'm waiting for the people to be like, why does a woman need a man behind her like Mysterio?
Well, she's fighting the villain, right?
Yeah,
she's going to be fighting the man.
But he's in the solicitation right there. It just says that he's behind it, and someone's behind him who's probably also a man
or a woman. That's the twist right there. 2019, right? 2020. Whenever this comes out.
The twist is the person behind him is Mary Jane.
That was the main bit of Marvel news that we got out of San Diego Comic-Con. There was a couple of subs that are like, oh, did you see all the Comic-Con news, all the stuff coming up? And I'm like, yeah, we've got the Amazing Mary Jane. We've got the Batman Graveyard book. We've got the Joker title. They're like, yeah, I didn't really see any of the comic stuff. And but I did pay attention, especially to what DC had going forward.
Did you?
Dan DiDio kind of... I'm going to disagree with him here, and I like Dan. I really do, but he expressed his frustration at the facsimile books at one of the panels. He kind of asked the panel of, I believe they were mainly retailers, it was the retailer meeting, on how many of them liked the facsimile editions, and I think no one raised their hand, or one or two, and he's like, good, that's the reaction I wanted, and then he went off on this rant about it, which we do have the quote here.
Quote, we do these facsimile editions where we reprint older issues of comics, including all the old ads and stuff. And in some cases, these are selling more than the new comics with these characters. People are more interested in buying the stories from 30 or 40 years ago than the contemporary stories, and that's a failure on us. We should be focused on moving things forward, always pushing the boundaries and finding new stories to tell. That's how we'll survive and grow in this industry. End quote.
Do you agree or disagree with what he's pulling out of sales, which he's seeing from the Marvel side, because they're barely doing these facsimiles themselves?
I see both sides, right? So facsimiles can be very successful, one for nostalgia, two because they're key issues that maybe, one, you're not going to get your hands on, and even if you do, you're not going to read through it, right? So that's the appeal to us as a reader to go and pick those up. I see his side too, because when you're in the position that you're in, you always want to be striving for better. You always want to be striving for more. And he thankfully understands that their stories need to be on par now with where they are to continue DC Comics. So he's always striving to be better. And I can see how he would view these facsimiles and their sales as them not doing well enough. But I don't think that's what it really translates to.
I don't think it's the same readership. I don't think it's the same consumer. So he's looking at this as so we sold the X 40,000 copies of this facsimile and only 20,000 of this ongoing issue. This is a problem here. It's like, well, no, it's not that it's nostalgia, or it's not that the old... And one comment I saw is that, well, it's because the old books were way better than the crap they're coming out with now. It's like, no, these are key issues in the history of comic books. And eventually there's going to be, probably down the line, a facsimile edition of Batman Damned or Blackest Night. We're seeing that with the trades now, or with the dollar reprints. So those are always going to be around because the storytelling is still there and the quality is still high. But he's viewing this as the readership are not buying these in place of ongoing comic books.
Right.
This is like an extra sale. It's an extra thing that they're going to buy on the side and not replacing what they otherwise would have picked up as an ongoing. This is a one-off. These don't come out often enough to affect your ongoing series.
But additionally, like you just said, you have 40,000 buying a facsimile and 20,000 buying an ongoing, right? So in his mind also, what are we not doing well enough in our ongoing to get that other 20,000 people? Sometimes
the first appearance of Poison Ivy is you're not gonna have something good enough to compete with that sale, or the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul. They're just as neat, key little issues to own, including the original ads, that I'm sorry, but some of your best titles, over half your titles, won't compete with that for that 1 month.
I don't disagree with you. I think there's a lot of middle ground, a lot of gray area in this. I don't 100% agree with what he's saying either, but it's encouraging to me to see that he's still striving for better, because I already think they're releasing better stories than Marvel, right? They already have some great things that in the limited amount of time that I have to read books, I'm still jumping on board with these, right? I'm still reading these. I'm still giving other ones a chance and a shot and continuing with them. And to hear from someone in that position of power saying, we're still trying to be better, that's encouraging. That shows that they know where their focus needs to be.
You've heard us in the past talk about how independent books have been very retailer friendly, especially over the last year. And DC Comics, out of the big two, has been the same with their limited returnability here and there. And they don't have that variant nonsense anymore like they did back in the New 52. Their cover Bs are open order, which is fantastic. Well, they've announced a huge thing, something that Marvel has yet to do in recent years. DC Comics has announced retailer returnability to more of their upcoming number one. So we saw that with Jimmy Olsen, we saw it with Lois Lane.
Mm-hmm.
And these new titles that are coming up are going to have returnability, and they include Basketful of Heads, The Batman's Grave, The Joker Killer Smile, no one's going to be returning that shit, or Joker Harley Criminal Insanity. But there's also Metal Men number one, we'll probably return some of those, and Legion of Superheroes, same thing. But the main difference here is that this lets retailers, it lets people like me find the ceiling on what you can sell. So if, for example, I have Metal Men number one, who the hell am I going to cross pull that for? Who the hell am I going to sell that to? It's like, all right, well, what title is like it, or what readers are reading? I think it's written by DiDio, and I'm like, I don't know who to really sell that to. So I'd play it safe. Let's say I have 3 subscribers that are down for it. I'm like, well, I guess I'll order maybe 15 or 10. How many do I really want to order? How many do I want to get stuck with? Here they're saying, well, they're going to be returnable. All right, well, I'll order 20, and whatever I don't sell, I will return. But then I'll know, okay, issue 2 orders are up. You sold 15 copies of it. All right, obviously I'm not going to order 15. You're going to order a little bit less because people are buying it just because it's number one. So maybe then I'll order 10 or 8 copies. That's kind of how this goes, and you find your ceiling, and it's extremely helpful. Whereas if I had just ordered the 10 copies, I had sold out then, I never would have known that I could have sold 15.
Right.
And that's 1 or 2 less readers that you would have gotten for issue 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Ultimately, it helps them too, because again, you're able to find that ceiling, right? You're able to see what's the maximum number of people that I can sell this to. And then because you have that fallback to return them, now you're selling to 3, 4, exactly like you said, more people than you would initially. And then that's better for them because that leads to future sales for them as well. So it makes a lot of sense. The way it won't work is if some idiot's like, let me order 100. They sell like 10. But then why are they in business? So that's just poor business.
So here's one key difference between DC and people like Boom Studios or Valiant even, who are really good about their returnability, is right now these returnability titles are tied into tiers. So they did this with Lois Lane. They said, it's kind of like the Marvel thing. You have to order at least 90% of what you ordered on Action Comics number 1008 of Lois Lane to make this returnable for you. So they're kind of setting the numbers for you already. So it's like, all right, well, I ordered 28 copies of Action Comics. I guess I'm ordering 28 copies of Lois Lane to qualify for it. But it's easier on this end because they'll say combined covers, though. So they won't say just cover A, you have to match cover A. No, they say between your A and B covers, as long as that number is at least
90%.
Your cover A of this, then you're good. So it makes it a little bit easier to hit those tiers.
Okay.
And if it's returnable anyway, you've kind of gauged where it's like, well, I'm going to return them. Well, yeah, I guess. The thing is, they don't make them returnable for, sometimes a few months. So you kind of sit on them until, and I'm sure retailers forget about it and end up sitting on copies. So that's kind of where the retailer wins on that end and they don't lose too much. There is that argument, and I'm curious to see where you fall on this, where people are saying that returnability on books cuts down on the collectability of them because now there's more copies out there and it's not catering to the speculator.
We shouldn't cater to the speculator. Get out of here with that shit. Cater to the speculator.
Well, that's the thing where Marvel Comics right now, their issues, as far as back issues, as far as what gets marked up more often, it is Marvel Comics out of all the companies out there. And that's because they don't have returnability on their issues. They have us ordering ahead of time, which I'm always going to underorder because screw that. I'm not going to be stuck with copies that I can't return. And because of that, They are more limited on their printings, and they're constantly like, oh, now we have Wolverine's daughter, and oh, a symbiote might have been on Ms. Marvel. So speculators come out and they'll try to buy all those issues on a book that we underordered on anyway because there's no returnability, and because the numbers are so low on some of these titles that these books are more limited, so there is more of a collectability or collector's value to Marvel Comics. So I think it's a balance of the industry. You have publishers like the independents and DC that are catering to the readers, people that are going to be buying your comics month to month. Those are the ones that I focus on as a retailer, not the ones that I'm like, all right, speculators coming out for this one issue. Oh, are they going to be there next month? I don't know. If there's a speculator issue, that's the problem. Whereas readers are there for the story. They want the next issue. They want the next part of the story. That's a guaranteed sale, more of a guaranteed sale than the speculator market. And that's where the industry really fell in the 90s when they were catering to those people that were out to get 2, 3, 4 copies of The Death of Superman or Spawn #1, all of that shit.
I mean, that's 100% it. If you are in the storytelling business and you're not catering to people who read the stories, then you're 100% doing the wrong thing, right? You can't cater to the person who's going to pick up one issue and then try to flip it on eBay, and then you're not making that money anyway. Like, that's just stupid. Just speculators, get out of here. Read the stories, and if you happen to end up with an expensive comic, then you end up with one. And then realistically, you're going to return them, right? And it's not like all those copies are sitting around. They're going to burn them or whatever. Recycle them.
One of my favorites is when they're like, I want to make sure I get every book that has a first appearance or a character or something that's going to be worth money. How do I do that? Buy every comic book out there then. Every single comic that releases, buy one of every single one, because that's the only way you're going to guarantee that you're going to have every character appearance and you're not going to miss a single one. It's tough. Like, don't buy just for that. Get there, as you said, if it happens to be worth something, great. Enjoy the story in the meantime. Follow what you like. Follow the authors or artists that you enjoy or the characters.
Speaking of following authors or teams that you enjoy, something that we're looking forward to in 2020 is being brought to us by the Eisner-winning Mr. Miracle creative team of Tom King and Mitch Gerads. Man, these names, I can't even pronounce my own last name, so whatever.
They're going to be teaming up with Doc Shaner. Love Doc Shaner. He did that Convergence Shazam 2-issue series in which it's very old school, very Darwin Cook-esque. And they're going to be doing Strange Adventures next year.
So this is a new series that will star Adam Strange. I don't know who that is.
So it is, once again, one of the lesser known characters in the DC universe. And I know Mr. Miracle is very well known now, especially, but even the casual reader picked up Mr. Miracle due to it being Tom King and Mitch Gerads. So they're looking to capture lightning in a bottle again, and why not trust them?
Of course.
With a character like Adam Strange. This is, if it's going to be as Mind Trip or Goofy or whatever it may be, if they can replicate Mr. Miracle, then great. This is going to be a book that I cross-pull for people that were down for Mr. Miracle. And with Doc Shaner behind it, it's going to look like a retro type of comic book, which I think lends itself really well with Adam Strange.
You still haven't told me who Adam Strange is.
So from what I've gathered, it's a human that, and this is an old character, and it's been years since there's been an actual Adam Strange, something that's really hit with the character. We've seen him in the cartoons a couple of times, and I believe he's even shown up in Krypton. We covered that news, I think, last year. But it is a human that is taken to a different planet and kind of grows into that type of system or that race, that culture, and uses that technology to travel throughout the universe to, I believe, fight off an alien race. But it's once again a character that I'm not too familiar with and not one that's been on the forefront of the DC universe.
Doing a quick Google search, it looks like he was also in a comic with Johnny Quest. Sorry, that was just really cool.
As part of the Hanna-Barbera line, right? The crossover between DC and... That's pretty neat. I don't think we picked that one up, or at least we tried the first couple of issues, but it wasn't really for us.
Well, that's really cool. Definitely something that we'll check out. They did such a great job with Mr. Miracle, right? There's no reason not to pick this up and see how far they can take this character, like far into space where he's from.
That's right. Another case of following creators, and in these creators we trust.
Something else we're jumping on board with is the next Batman Black and White statue, which will release in May 2020.
So this is based on Todd McFarlane's infamous Batman number 423 cover, which features him in that giant cape, kind of early Spawn style, right? And this is the one in which a woman is on Batman's chest, kind of huddled up, and he's got the giant cape all around her. This is the one that people famously say Batman has 3 arms in, because if you notice, he's got his arm around her, he's got the other one, the cape up, and then he's got a third one that would have had the cape on the left-hand side. And I don't know, you could argue that it's a stylized cape, so he doesn't have 3 arms, but it's kind of funny. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
I can't unsee it, so thank you.
But it's kind of fixed in the statue because you don't see him holding anyone, so they've kind of, it's like, all right, he's holding up his cape.
There's no woman there?
No, they didn't. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird, but in the Batman Black and White line, I don't think they've done multiple characters on one statue, so.
You know what would have been smart of them is to have like a little space right there where she is, right? And then create people that you can fit into there.
Superman.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman.
Perfect.
Talia.
No.
All of them.
not Talia.
Yeah, McFarlane, it's kind of, you can't get every aspect of that cover on the statue, because then you're going to have a statue that's going to break very easily. We're going to have a lot of damaged copies when they come in. So yes, it is a more simplified version of McFarlane's cover, but it still came out really good. It still translated really nicely. And every time I think, all right, I'm done with the Batman Black and White line, I've gotten enough of these, they come out with that extra one that it's like, God damn it, man, that's a really cool one. And I have to pull the trigger on them every now and again.
Oh man, that's the one you're talking about? I just Google searched it. It's beautiful.
Isn't it?
You have to get it. You can't listen. Don't ever say you're done with Batman Black and Whites, because they always release something great.
It should be in the next previews or two if it's coming out in May. So check with your local comic book shop next week when the previews catalog comes out over in the DC section.
I do really like it. They like modernized him. His face looks a little more like normal Batman and not like spooky Spawn guy.
What is your opinion on McFarlane's artwork?
Spooky Spawn. It's not for me. I'm more of a Dustin Nguyen fan.
He was known, obviously he's done Spawn, which is huge. He co-created Venom, which is a massive character. But one of the things early on is he really took Spider-Man, and the way he drew him and the way he posed them was very revolutionary for the character, because they hadn't really done something quite like what he had done on his run of Spidey, in which he contorted his body and really made him like his knee was up above his head, and all these really interesting poses that made the books gorgeous to look at. And it was in that era of artists were king over the writers.
That's really cool, because those kind of things are what you think of when you think of Spider-Man, right? Is all these crazy jumps, and he's, I don't know, that just makes Spider-Man now. So good for him. His art's still not for me.
I watched one of his videos explaining his whole breakdown of Spider-Man, and one of the things he used to do for fun is he'd see a panel. It's like, all right, I got to have Spider-Man swinging here. He would draw random shapes, and he'd say, okay, now I have to fit the character's body here. So then he would find creative ways to put him in there.
So he would just go home and drink and then come up with this stuff.
And it worked out really well. And the other thing, too, that he said he regretted later on is when they did the webs before he came around, is they would do like regular lines going across or whatever was simple or easy. He was the one who would follow the strand and all the way down the webbing, and every strand he would continue. It wouldn't just lead off whatever, like, oh, it's just a web. He would continue it. So his early drawings, he says you can follow it, and every strand you can follow all the way off panel. And that ended up being something that he was known for. And they're like, oh my God, his comics, his artwork's so detailed, and he couldn't stop. And now he's like, well, now I have to keep doing them this way.
Forever, yeah.
Right. So he kind of regretted that later on. But now with Photoshop, he's like, it's done in seconds, and he did it real quickly because you do these tools that kind of mirror your line work. And then he's like, and you just follow it here and done. It's much easier than back when I used to hand draw it. And
Right.
And, that used to
hate
kind of suck.
myself.
But he did change it because now a lot of artists have that same type of webbing or something similar, not quite as complex, but he did change at least the look of webbing as well.
Moving back over to DC, talking about the television side of things, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Batman Beyond, Warner Brothers is releasing a Blu-ray edition of the full run of the show.
I'm not as big on Batman Beyond as a lot of our listeners are, but I did include it because I know a lot of them do like Batfake. And my favorite thing about Batfake is the Return of the Joker movie, where the Joker coins that term. But this particular run of the Blu-ray edition is very similar to what they did with Batman the Animated Series. It's got the full packaging. It's got a Funko Pop, a chrome edition of Little Batman Beyond, just like the yeah.
He's so angry.
And it features 1,500 minutes of entertainment spread over 4 Blu-ray discs, plus 2 bonus discs of enhanced content, and a remastered Blu-ray edition of Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker.
The whole box set, this is not a bad price, is $100, $99.99, and releases on October 29th of this year.
I don't think this will do as well as the Batman the Animated Series Blu-ray edition, but I think it'll still do okay because enough of the people that grew up on Batman Beyond probably have enough expendable income to be able to afford something like this, as opposed to the animated series one, which was an older viewership that definitely have some of that expendable income to buy it. But like I said, even as an animated series fan, I don't feel like I have to have this to complete my Blu-ray collection. There aren't enough episodes in that season that I have to go back and watch. Many of the ones I have seen, I'm like, all right, I don't have to see these ever again.
But some of them were so good.
There were a couple of gems, absolutely.
Maybe it was Justice League, the one with Ace.
Well, yeah, that was absolutely Justice League Unlimited.
Was it? Okay, because it also had older Terry in it.
Right.
So, all right, never mind. Then we good.
That was like the final produced episode of that character, because Batman Beyond had been canceled and Justice League Unlimited was the last running Timverse show. And that's when they felt like they needed to close off the universe. And that's when they did that whole, you're half a clone of Bruce, half his son type of thing.
It was
and
so perfect.
Really fucking good.
I can't finish the show now. I'm too sad thinking about Ace.
Another animated show that has been a huge hit. I remember years ago, you and I were campaigning for the return of Young Justice. But now we're getting a 4th season of this show streaming exclusively on the DC Universe service.
Brilliant. So the show, like you mentioned, was canceled back in 2013, but fans spent years petitioning, bring the show back, and they have, and we have been trying to get through it. Not because it's bad, our lives are different than they were in 2013.
New episodes currently debut every Tuesday on DC Universe. Just like the show, the characters' lives kind of continued during that cancellation period, and a lot of them are adults. A lot of them have a family, even in the show. I know the dynamic is very different than what we left off on it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel. I think it's my least favorite season so far.
I would agree with that. But I think it's also a foundation season because they introduced a lot of new characters. And by a lot, I mean like 3, right? But these are the characters that we're focusing on now. I don't know if they exist in the comics, right? But they're lesser known characters. If they are, they're not characters that I have any experience with. So that may be part of the reason that I don't enjoy it as much. There are some funny moments, like that guy falling through the center of the earth over and over again. So I think once we get through a few more episodes and things start to pick up and not be so foundational, then we may start to enjoy it more.
The main thing that's missing for me that the other seasons had, yeah, exactly, the founding members of the Justice League. We're barely seeing them at all. It's focused exclusively on the Young Justice and the new characters. So I feel like you need to give us a little something, even if it's still them trying to separate themselves from the League.
Just have Batman's legs show up, like, woo.
Or like send them on missions. I don't know, but it's working for them. There's obviously more seasons coming.
Again, I think we'll get there. I think they're trying to build a strong foundation and really get us to like these characters and make it believable, not just, oh, they suddenly got powers and they're great at using them, right? We're seeing them train and dabbling in lives with kids and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Something else that got renewed on DC Universe is Doom Patrol. We're getting a second season, but it's also going to air on HBO Max. So this is one of those cases in which they're taking bits of DC Universe and bits of Crunchyroll and bits of the, I think it was Nickelodeon or I'm sorry, Looney Tunes and Cartoon Network and putting them on HBO Max. It doesn't mean that everything is moving over. They're just getting some shows to make that HBO Max subscription that much more valuable. So Doom Patrol will be coming back on those two services.
There's no debut date set for the second season. We're still also trying to get through the first season.
If I had to guess, late next year, if anything, because they still have to go through and produce it, maybe even early 2021. But the HBO Max service isn't set to come out until next year anyway, so I think they have enough content under their belt that
I'm sure
this can wait. This does not have to be a launch thing.
Next up on our list, we got the trailer for the Harley Quinn animated movie.
Holy shit! Can we do that again?
No.
So this ended up looking like an Adult Swim show.
100%. That was the entire feel that I got from this.
This could have aired right next to Morty and Rick and Family Guy and
Robot
Chicken
Chicken
and all of them. I was actually surprised. The animation's still on the DC Universe service from what we've seen in Young Justice and now in Harley Quinn. At times looks better than what they're releasing on Blu-ray in those original animated movies. And I don't know if it's because it's like, all right, first season, let's give it this budget. And then based on the success, then we'll cut down or increase it. But I felt like this Harley Quinn trailer, and we've gotten an early teaser before, but now we got to look at a lot of these characters and a lot of these villains. It's very stylized. It's not quite Amanda Conner, but it's inspired by that comic book, and that much is clear from it. We're getting a lot of these side characters, and it seems like she has a ton of buddies around her, very much like the New 52 version of her solo series.
I think that this will be pretty popular. It does have that kind of humor that does very well. We've seen, exactly like you said, Adult Swim shows, right? That are the same kind of humor that have done very well. I am nervous as a Harley Quinn fan because this is going to be a very different take on her. And not that I think they'll change the core of who she is, but like you see in the trailer, she's hitting Joker in the balls, right? Because he says something, and so she just hits him with a bat, and like that kind of humor. So I don't know that we're going to get a lot of anything deep. It looks like it's just going to be fun laughs, and, you know, I'll give an episode or two a shot and see. It just kind of like, and I don't even want to say this because it sounds super negative, but just something you can kind of turn your brain off and watch and enjoy and have a good time.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the New 52 comic, and we love Jimmy and Amanda, and this is not a slight on the comic book, but it was just goofy fun, as they described it, Looney Tunes humor, and that's okay. You can have those things as well on the side, and if that's something, if you're looking for something like Batman Adventures Mad Love, you're not going to find it here.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind as you see the show, and I think the trailer does a good job of telling you what to expect. I do like that we got some Batman in there. We got Clayface.
Right.
We got Joker. So I'm sure
Poison
there's going to be
Ivy.
enough character appearances that are like, all right, that's kind of neat. Let's see where she goes next.
This definitely will not be a kid's show, though. So don't show your children.
It was a little jarring to see her cussing.
Right.
So I was like,
let's do that shit again. I'm like, Harley, calm down.
A little weird, but I'm sure we'll get used to it once we see it. And it's on DC Universe. Obviously, we're going to watch it. It's exclusive on there.
Perfect.
Continuing on the animated side of the DC Universe, announced during the Batman Hush panel at San Diego Comic-Con, one of my favorite comic books of all time, Superman Red Son, was finally confirmed to kick off next year's trio of animated movies.
You've been waiting your whole life for this.
Well, I've been waiting ever since that fucking Warner Brothers A-list thing, that survey they sent out about a year ago asking, what's the animated movie that you'd want? I filled in Superman Red Son. It's like, come on, man, do this one. And I know one of the choices was Batman Hush, and it's like, yeah, all right, those two, yeah. But Superman Red Son, let's do that. And they finally fully confirmed it. I know it showed up in a poll later on as well. I'm like, all right, now they're going to fucking do it. This is the confirmation.
It takes place in Russia, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, you get some scenes in the Lex Luthor thing.
You know what else takes place in Russia?
What else?
That singing guy.
Which singing guy?
It's been stuck in my head this whole podcast.
You got to get background on this.
Somebody, I don't even know, if you just type in like Russian tongue song. So this guy, he's like Klaus Nomi. He's Klaus Nomi's son. That's what I'm going with.
He's not quite as good.
He's in a sparkly suit and he goes, and that's how he sings.
All right, then. I am nervous as hell for Superman Red Son, the animated adaptation.
Why?
And I know I voted for it. And the reason is it's the same thing that made me nervous with Batman Hush. And that's one of the reasons I'm like, I don't think Batman Hush is going to live up to the source material. Is Hush is connected to the current animated universe. So they made it fit into this continuity instead of it being a direct adaptation of the comic like The Dark Knight Returns like they used to do. And this is because Bruce Timm is no longer the head of this animated world. And ever since they switched over to someone else, his focus has been, let's build an animated universe that continues stories, that continues these things, instead of just focusing on making these comics, bringing them to life like they did with The Killing Joke and the, Gotham
by Gaslight.
Gotham by Gaslight, and all of these others. All-Star Superman. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite animated DC ones. So I hope that Red Son is a direct adaptation, and I hope that the animation isn't as crummy as it has been in the latest animated movies. And I know I've said this in the past, but people constantly parrot that DC does animated good, they don't do live action bad. And I'm like, no, their animated movies have not been great in the last couple of years. And then up until Justice League, their live action ones have been really solid. So it's kind of had this flip-flop in the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years. So I'm nervous. Obviously, I want to see the first trailer. I want to see how good the animation is. I hope they try to mirror some of what they got in the comic book styling of the pages like they used to do, for example, Dark Knight Returns, but only time will tell.
I'm going to hold out hope. I am believing that this will be everything you want it to be and more.
We'll see. There was a movie that disappointed me this week. We'll talk about it during the BroCat block. But the other two films that are coming out next year, aside from Red Son, is going to be a sequel to Justice League Dark, which that one had Matt Ryan returning as Constantine. I'm sure we'll get that as well in this. And an original Superman story titled Superman Man of Tomorrow.
But of course, the big one out of those 4 is Superman Red Son, originally released in 2003. It's an Elseworlds 3-issue comic as written by Mark Miller. Can this man do no wrong?
Still one of the best-selling trade paperbacks at the comic book shop,
Of
Superman
all
Red Son.
time.
It's absolutely fantastic. What a great story. It's a must read. Have to read it before you die. It's 3 issues long. And the whole trade paperback, it's getting a new printing. It's gotten a new printing. So definitely check it out before you see the movie, because honestly, I don't know if the movie's going to do it justice. So you might as well have the comic under your belt going into this.
So this week we had a lot of fantastic San Diego Comic-Con news. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it. So the Joker film also chose to skip San Diego because we weren't going to be there.
They're like, well, if they're not going.
Right. Kelly and Daniel aren't going to be there, so no reason for us to go. We'll focus on other things. That's really what happened, I promise.
It is. You're right.
So the Joker film skipped San Diego Comic-Con because we weren't there, right? Yeah, okay. And instead focused on running the film festival circuit at the Toronto Film Festival, which we're also not going, but, whatever, Joker film.
We wish them the best, though.
Yeah.
That's why they ran it by us first.
Yeah,
so.
They're like, listen, we're not going to go to San Diego, but we have this other, and I know you can't go, and we're just like, it's okay, Joker film.
We'll be there in spirit. We'll talk about it on the show.
Yeah,
give you a little boost there.
Do what you need to do.
So the Toronto Film Festival is running from September 5th through the 15th, and this showing will be the movie's first public screening.
Other screened movies include Ford vs. Ferrari, The Goldfinch, Just Mercy, The Two Popes, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and more.
So clearly, this is it's like Oscar bait stuff. This is where you get a lot of that coming out of it later on in the year. This is where you get the festival winners and they later tout them. And based on how successful they are, they do those limited releases. The Joker, it's so big. It's Warner Brothers. It's a DC Comics character that it doesn't need to win those awards to have the screenings. But it's nice that they have the confidence behind it to go, this is a film. It's not going out to try to make spectacle. It's not out there trying to be a blockbuster movie. That's not the focus. The focus here is to have the story be the star, to have the character be the star, to have the performance, that the quality of the movie itself, not something that's there to make as much money as possible to guarantee a sequel, to try to build a universe. They're just making a movie that is what really appeals to I think, us. This is why I disagree so often with a lot of people on movies, is because I unfortunately look at these things a lot differently, where I can't just let certain things go or let certain things be. I have to study it and analyze it and break it down. And that's why, as some people might say, it's ruined the way you view movies forever. But that's how you really discover a lot of really interesting and different movies, and then you also kind of appreciate them in a different way. And it looks like so far Joker is right up my alley. It's that kind of movie that not only will be a good comic book movie, but is going to be a good film as well.
Before we continue on with the story, A Good Day in the Neighborhood, that's the Mr. Rogers one, right?
Yeah, with Tom Hanks.
So somebody posted something about this on my Facebook, and it made me so angry. And I just have to talk about my anger for a second. Because they said, imagine if Steve Rogers, as an old man, went back in time and then decided to teach children to be kind to everybody. And that's where Mr. Rogers came from. And everybody's like, oh, that's so cool. And it's like, Mr. Rogers was a real fucking person. Like, why are you going to discredit all the great thing? Why are you going to discredit my childhood by having to throw Marvel into it? It made no sense to me.
Exactly.
I got so angry.
Fucking Marvel sheep. Shut your fucking face. Jesus Christ. What a stupid fucking thing to say.
It's not even like, he's a real person.
Right.
He's a real person. It's not like he's some fictitious character where, even though that's stupid too, but he was... and I know somebody who knew him. Like, he was a great guy, and now we just have to throw our Marvel into everything.
This is the general audience, though. This is what it is.
I'm so angry. Like, I couldn't even comment on the post to say that because I was so angry.
Yeah, you've upset me too. So.
Yeah, wasn't that so upsetting?
I see some stupid fucking shit all the time.
But that was so stupid.
From the MCU sheep, and a lot of them I end up muting or blocking, so it's kind of filtering all that crap out. But god damn, every now and again something slips through, and it's like you're reminded of the fucking stupid nonsense. We have a quote here. Let's move on.
About Joker, which is going to be a great movie.
Hopefully.
Cleanse yourself with that thought.
Artist, director / co-head of the Toronto Film Festival, Cameron Bailey, said, quote, in a fractious social movement, a lot of these stories are about characters looking for empathy or ways to connect. These films don't directly address what's happening, but there seems to be a recognition that we are living in difficult times, end quote. So this does reflect a lot of, misery that is going on. I mean, obviously suicide rates have been higher in the last couple of years than ever, or at least I think they said compared to the last 30 years. So it's reflecting a lot of that inner struggle that people are running into or are having. So that's why people are connecting with characters like Joker or sympathetic villains even sometimes. And very much like when Batman Begins, Dark Knight, the Nolan trilogy came out, it was a post 9/11 world, and we were kind of attaching ourselves to more grounded and darker films because, the world got very real for a lot of people. So movies and art and everything else is a reflection of that moment or those periods of time.
The Joker film is set to release on October 5th, and you will find our butts in the seat opening night.
Day one, and we will have a review right here on the show.
But guys, that does wrap up our news for the week. A whole bunch of news. A whole bunch of rants. But now we can move into our Patreon shoutouts of the week.
First shout out this week goes out to Nick F. on Twitter at Jersey Whisperer and at Nick's Nerd News 1.
He said, quote, "Thanks at The Secret Stash for the surprise gift. This is incredible and why I love doing business with you guys." End quote. And he attached an image of Daredevil Bullseye #1 signed by Kevin Smith.
He's a huge Kevin Smith fan, and it sounds like he might have purchased something from the stash, either their online store or ordered it in, and they included a nice little bonus, which was, of course, a signed copy of Daredevil Bullseye. Really neat. I remember having that issue. I bought it at Dreamland Comics up in Chicago, so I recognized that cover immediately when he tweeted it, and I thought that's really fucking neat.
Awesome.
So go down Secret Stash and enjoy, Nick.
Our next shout out goes out to Julian, whose Twitter handle is at...
So it turns out it's
Kage?
Kage0, as Purple Swordfish told me. I'm not a weeb, but it's Kage's a character, I think, from Naturo.
Yeah. I think I kind of knew that. Anyway, Kage023 or at Lazy Gaming Guys.
And via their podcast, Breakfast with Lazy Gaming Guys, I learned that Julian used to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game with Scott, who's another lazy gaming guy, over the phone. So I thought that was really funny because they would set up their side and they would be on the phone and they would talk and they would do their moves over the phone.
But how did they know that they weren't cheating?
Well, they actually answer that. They're like, they both trusted each other so much and they both admitted, they're like, no, I never cheated. I never cheated. And they just played. And the thing is too, they also, I think it was Scott that said that the way he also knew that Julian wasn't cheating and vice versa is they both knew each other's decks so well anyway. So they would know if something weird was happening as far as like a different card suddenly showing up. So, but he also reminded, he's like, hey, we didn't have like streaming cameras that we could just stream the others like play. We just had to be on the phone and talking to each other. And I think that's kind of a neat testament to friendship in a way. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I know they've known each other for most of their lives, but it's kind of like that fun, nerdy thing that they did. And I thought that was really interesting because I've never done anything like that.
No, I used to. So my best friend growing up, we talked on the phone all the time, like every night, right? But then AIM happened, and then we used to be on AIM all the time. I never called it AIM. That's the first time I ever called it that. That was weird. Don't like it. We used to be on AIM all the time, just talking to each other, right? And then we used to write fan fiction. So we'd be on the phone talking about, I guess that was our nerdy thing that we did. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Oh, man, I miss those days.
Not quite as nerdy as playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
They were, really? Because it's fan fiction. I mean, it wasn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan fiction, but it was like Digimon.
Was it at least anime? Okay, well,
yeah,
that's
Sailor
pretty nerdy.
Moon, Digimon.
Next shout out goes out to Christian on Instagram at @A_man_defeated. And this shout out kind of ties into a little something for Julian, too.
Christian has been making gym progress over the months, watching him get swole.
That's all watch him get swole on Instagram, guys. So Julian, watch him get swole. That's getting big and muscly.
What?
That's what the kids say now.
Swole?
The same kids that probably don't know what AIM is.
My heart. Just go ahead, throw my age out there. That's fine. Let them all know how old I am.
Ugh, but good job, Christian. He's really been making progress. He's been going to the gym, and good on you, man.
That is on my list. I want to start going to the gym. Maybe I can get swole on Instagram, too. Is that what we do?
Next shout out goes out to Eric on Twitter at eAntonOfficial.
Eric said, quote, "Confession, I'm yet to see Infinity War or Endgame," end quote.
Good on you, Eric.
Good on you.
Very proud.
Don't be like all the sheep.
I skipped them. I didn't see them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to see them, go ahead, but it's up to you. Judge it based on the crap that came out before it.
I've been getting on some Facebook fights today because some news came out about that movie. I don't know, whatever. And I'm very upset about it because people are putting on blinders and just accepting it. It's a lie.
I don't know what it is. Who cares? Final shout out this week goes out to Renee on Twitter at Yugi's Pokemon.
Renee said, quote, "Want to go back into collecting the TCG. What's the newest set out?" End quote.
Well, Renee, it is about to release. If you have a comic shop or a game shop near you that ran a pre-release, you can get next week the Unified Mind set a little bit early. Otherwise, the Unified Mind set comes out in about 2 weeks, a little bit less than that. But that's the one that continues the team up set where you have Mewtwo and Mew in one card. That's kind of like the star of the set. You have them on the Elite Trainer boxes. But yeah, I just ran a pre-release this past weekend, and it was our biggest pre-release yet at this new store since we've started almost 2 years ago. And it was awesome. Like, people had a lot of fun. I had a few pre-release packs left, which I've since like been pre-ordering out to people, and it's going to be yet another really strong set for Pokemon. I have more kids coming in and getting into it. It's one of those games now where the parents that grew up on Pokemon are now getting their kids into the TCG as well. So the parents are getting back into it, and the kids are getting interested in it because of Pokemon Go, because of the video games, and because they see the old cards that their parents had, and they're like, what the hell? I want to learn to play this. So it's awesome. Unified Minds is going to be a great one to jump in on. It'll be standard format, so that's what I would say is the one to really focus on.
And just to really clarify, the set is called Unified Minds.
What did I say?
Well, because you called it the Unified Minds set.
Right. Okay, I got you.
But it sounds like Mindset.
Oh, right.
But it's
right.
not it's Minds set. Okay, good.
There you go. So thank you so much, Renee, Eric, Christian, Julian, and Nick for your Patreon support.
If you too would like your shout out every single month for as little as $1 a month, that's 25 cents an episode, sometimes less. We only got 5 weeks in the month. Or 5 of Sundays. Anyway, whatever. You can too be a Patreon backer. Just go to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke.
And if you would like to wear some The Reasons I'm Broke inspired t-shirts, or if you want to use a mug, enjoy your coffee and something really neat, head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com, click on merch, and you will find all of our t-shirt designs, all of our pillow designs, mugs, all kinds of great stuff on there. And you just click on the link and you will find all the different colors and different products and merch that go with that design.
Can you put me on a mug? Can we?
I could, yeah.
But I want to be like the Starbucks logo.
Hey, that's going to be some Photoshop magic
like
there.
Emperor Kelli around me, and then I'm like...
You'd have to have the hood?
Yeah, I got to have the hood. I got to be like...
Yeah, it's a tough one. I struggle enough on the designs that I do create, so we'll see. But let's head into our comic book review for the week, our comic book highlight.
As we said in the very beginning, our comic book this week is Batman Curse of the White Knight #1. This will be a series of 8.
This is written and drawn by colors by Sean Murphy.
Good job, Sean Murphy.
And as we mentioned earlier, this is the sequel to Batman White Knight, which was also, I believe, 8 issues. And you can now find it as a trade paperback, all in one book. The basic idea of that first one is, what if the Joker turned sane again and proves to Gotham that Batman has been more harmful for the city than the Joker has? And in a weird, twisted way, he's right. But then at the end, you've kind of... It's that conclusion of, yeah, but Batman is for the great... Like, he helps the city more than hurts it. And yes, he is hurting the city, but he is also stopping these criminals and maniacs that would have otherwise destroyed Gotham by now. So this is the sequel to that, in which the Joker is still going... He's the Joker again, but he's going to, I guess, sort of break the bat in a way. And a lot of what they set up in the first story, which changed Gotham forever, which changed Batman forever, has a massive part in this sequel. So I actually would say that the White Knight series is a must-read before going into Curse.
I read this first issue and I didn't feel lost. I mean, I don't feel like I had to read what happened before, because they just kind of touched on it again briefly, right? So I feel like, I don't know. We'll see what happens continuing in the issues. I can't articulate my words right now because I did really enjoy this book, but I still don't feel like it had the same feeling as the previous one. Did you get that same thing too? Like, I felt like, okay, everything's fine again. Batman's helping out again. And they still gave us enough background of what happened that I'm glad that I read it, right? But I didn't need to read the prequel to read this.
It does have a lot of recap, and the characters are discussing what happened in White Knight by, now that GCPD is working with Nightwing and Batgirl. Like, there is a lot of that, and you're right. But I think you'd have a deeper appreciation for sure.
Well, sure.
More than usual than if you were to just jump into a series with Curse of the White Knight, especially since what happened with Jack Napier / Joker in the last one is something that even the Joker is still struggling with now in this series. And I don't think that was made as clear in this first issue.
I don't disagree with that, but they did kind of touch on that too, where he was like, well, when you were Jack Napier, and he's like, that's a different guy. He's gone now. Like, I'm the Joker again.
See, but that would be confusing to someone that's just jumping in, because they're like, oh, so was it a separate guy, or was it... They don't make that connection that it's him saying again. But yeah, I think it's going to play better off as a full story in the end when this is all said and done. But the artwork is still amazing by Sean Murphy. I love it. And now they're introducing... This is all out of continuity. This is a DC Black Label book now, in which this does not tie into anything Batman that's going on. And there's characters that die and are changed drastically from what you understand in this story. So that's kind of letting the author tell his story.
The Joker has a crop top. It was real cute.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to make a statue of that, I'm sure. They already have in the black and white, actually.
Really?
Yeah. It already came out.
Oy.
So...
crop top Joker.
They also play a lot with the background of the Waynes and the deep history of Gotham.
Yeah.
So
Arkham.
And Arkham as well. And that's something that they didn't do in White Knight. White Knight, it was strictly about the exploration of who the Joker is and how these different Harleys are working through that.
The White Knight was also about Gotham now and Gotham moving forward. So it'll be interesting if they play a lot into what Gotham was and focus on the past, because that's the very first thing we see, right? Is 1800s Gotham and what happened there and how does... But I don't like what they did to Alfred.
Yeah, and that's something that you see in White Knight.
My heart, it hurts.
I know Sean Murphy is a big Batman the Animated Series fan, and we got a lot of those touches in the first volume of White Knight. So I want to see more of that as well here. And he even had a lot of Keaton references in that first volume too. Right. So I didn't see a lot of Easter eggs this time, but I'm curious to see if he has a lot of fun with this too.
Hopefully. It was a good start. If you haven't read the first round, I think you could still pick this up and not be too lost. But yeah, if you have the opportunity to read that beforehand, definitely should. And
to those of you who are collecting, more collectors than anything, there is a cover B, which features Azrael, also as done by Sean Murphy. So really neat to see. And that's the only variant that I was able to find. I know sometimes they do exclusive online variants, but as far as what comic shops can get, there's a cover B that is open order, and I love the presentation of the comic as well, in which they did spot gloss on the cover, and they hadn't done that before in the previous volume. So this one, they really upped the quality of the printing, or at least on the covers and the back cover, where certain parts of the cover, the titling, the character, are in that gloss compared to the matte finish. And I think the cost is an extra $1 or $2, so that's where you get extra pages and you get that kind of premium format. That elevation of what is DC Black Label. We've seen that with Batman Damned, with Superman Year One, in which they've kind of made the pages larger. They made a magazine style, or in this case, they're making the paper at least higher quality. And they did that with Last Night on Earth as well. But with that, we do wrap up the standard portion of our podcast for the week. Next up, we have our Brocat block, which is what happened with Daniel and I the last time since we spoke to you. We're coming up on the final couple of days of the Podcast Awards nomination period, and we're trying to go for the third year in a row. If you have a minute, please head on over to podcastawards.com and vote for us under Games and Hobbies and People's Choice. We're trying to get nominated for the third year in a row. Next month, we'll know if we got nominated again for the Podcast Awards, and that's when the voting period will begin. And then later on in a couple of months, we'll know the final results. So if you have a minute, if you know anyone that listens to the podcast, make sure that they voted as well if they enjoy it and if they believe that we should get nominated under Games and Hobbies and or People's Choice. Once again, podcastawards.com. Doesn't take very long. All you need is an email address to sign up.
I'm working on it right now just to show you it doesn't take long. You can multitask, guys.
That's all you got to do.
All you got to do. But when you do sign up, you do also have the option to click to be a voter as well. So they'll randomly select people to vote. And then that's just one more vote for us, right? So definitely nominate us now, but also sign up to try and be a voter.
And something else for all of you, courtesy of Twitter user and Broquette at DCUFanFam, we are doing a Shazam movie giveaway. So a digital copy of Shazam. All we want to know is, what's your all-time favorite scene in the DC Extended Universe and why? So that's very important, and why. You got to submit it by August 25th via speakpipe.com/thereasonsimBroke. 90 seconds or less. Last week I said 30 seconds or less, but you actually have 90 seconds or less. I thought the limit was much lesser on SpeakPipe. But we do have this voicemail because while he helped us out with the Shazam code, he wanted to participate as well because he's a huge DCEU fan. So here we have at DCEU FanFam's voicemail.
Hey guys, responding to your Shazam movie question, I think my favorite moment in the DC universe is in Man of Steel when just after Lois has left in the escape pod and Clark is having a conversation with Jor-El, and I think that is the moment when Clark stops trying to figure out who he is and decides he wants to be Superman and decides that he wants to be a hero. I think how well it's shot and everything about it describes in just a few seconds Superman being Superman. Thanks.
That's an excellent choice. There's so many things about that movie that I really, really enjoy. I think it's a great representation of Superman and this version of Superman that they've continued through the DCEU recently. So great job.
As he mentioned, it is a very Superman moment of this is what Superman is about. And this is where I think a lot of us do get a little bit kind of crazy or upset at the people that are like, well, that's not Superman. That's not my Christopher Reeve Superman. And it's like, no, this is at its core the best Superman movie out there. And that moment is one of many in Man of Steel that plays to the Superman fan. And it's such a great scene, as he mentioned, Jor-El showing him Earth and seeing Lois Lane falling down into Earth in that pod, being the representation of humanity over Earth and saying you can save them. It's your choice. You can save them. And him saving Lois Lane is that I will forever protect this planet. And, you know, he makes that connection with his father as well. So he's always had that, even if it's his biological or non-biological father, of, you know, you can help these people. You can be that hope for them. And it's an amazing scene. I do. The one part is when he kind of does that Christ pose. That's a little, it's like, all right.
That's a little much. Calm down.
But it's him going down to Earth, saving Lois Lane. We know he is always there to protect his home and to be that hope for people.
By the way, guys, I just finished voting. So there you go.
You hadn't voted yet?
Yeah,
what's going on?
Because I wanted the Broquettes to see how easy it was. Because I signed up. I found us under People's Choice and Games and Hobbies. Clicked on it. Done.
And checked off for a voter?
Almost. I gotta pick these other podcasts too. Gotta help out some other people.
Well, the rest of our Broquette block, you're on your phone, which you had a freak out of on a couple days ago.
I sure did. This thing, listen, scared the crap out of me. So every once in a while, because I read a lot of books on my phone, and so they download to my phone right through the app that I use, which is a legitimate app. It's the Kindle app. Downloads to my phone, and then it has a notification that tells me it's downloading, or that it did download. Well, every once in a while, it'll get stuck, right? Where it tells me, like, oh, this downloaded, but the notification doesn't go away, and the only way to clear it is for me to restart my phone. So I restarted my phone to get that notification to go away. We're laying in bed, right? We're watching a movie, which we'll talk about in a minute. And my phone comes up, and it's like, oh, something went wrong. Do you want to wipe your phone? And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I restarted it several times, wouldn't boot up. Finally got it into safe mode because I have too many pictures of our child. So my cloud was full. And I really would have only lost about a month of pictures and videos, but that's a long time in a baby's life, right? So I had to go in and purchase more cloud memory. Anyway, I got into safe mode so that I could take care of all that. But it was a very stressful time for me because I also didn't know if a hard, factory reset would fix my phone. And if it doesn't, then I have to purchase a new phone. And where's the money for the new phone? Like, it was all these things, and I was very scared. It seems to be okay. The really cool thing, maybe again I'm showing my age because I didn't know that this was a thing, but your phone also has backups on the cloud.
That's pretty cool.
So when you factory reset, or even when you get a new phone, when you sign into the cloud, it saves the majority of everything. So 90% of my apps were there. It still remembered my Wi-Fi passwords. A lot of my settings, so like my background was still there, even though there's no pictures on my phone right now. Most of it was there. There's still small things that, as I go to do something, I'm like, oh wait, that's not here. And I had to re-download Facebook. I'm going to have to get the pictures from the cloud back onto my phone. Little things like that. But it was very frustrating and very scary.
Yeah, that was all while we were watching the Batman TMNT animated movie. So I have to go back and watch it again now because you were stressed out, which was stressing me out.
I was you wouldn't have been stressed out if you looked over and your phone was like, hey, it's time to wipe.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, you were stressed out. I was stressed out. I have to rewatch Batman TMNT.
So stressed out.
That is a freak out.
Yeah.
I was mainly worried for the pictures.
Yeah.
All the photos of Leo and all that. But thankfully, once you were like, okay, I can back them up on the cloud, and it's like, all right, well, even if this phone craps out, the important part is all those memories.
Once I got the cloud set up, right? And granted, it still took forever to upload all the rest of the pictures. But once I got the cloud up, then I was able to calm down because that's what I was worried about, is losing all that stuff, all the pictures. And even the cloud, when I sign in to look at it, it still makes me scroll down forever and takes forever to load. So I didn't really know with 100% certainty that all his baby pictures were on there. That's what I worry about, his first days, right? Because I had them. I think I talked about him. I moved a bunch of them to an SD card, which also crapped out. It got corrupted, and I lost a bunch of them too. So I think I have half of them backed up. I don't know. I don't remember that time. But I talk to parents all the time, and they go, I take so many pictures of my kids, and then I never look at them. I'm like, I look at them all the time.
Right.
We'll be laying in bed going, getting ready to go to sleep, and we'll just scroll back a year or, half a year and say, how far has Leo come from this? And we'll watch videos and enjoy it. And, I was talking to somebody else today telling them this happened with my phone. And I'm like, I have videos of my kid breathing. I don't want to lose that. She's a mom too. And she's like, I totally understand. Here he is asleep at 3 days old, and you got a minute and a half of this, and you just enjoy it. So yeah, that's the worst part. But now I have 50 gigs of cloud. So we'll see when that fills up.
In about a month or so.
Probably. At the rate I'm going, yes.
I had mentioned that we saw Batman TMNT, I can't want to say 3, but it's the animated adaptation of the first volume or the first couple of books that came out years ago. And this, I don't know if it was because, we were stressed out by this thing, but I did not think it was a really good adaptation of it. I do think it was aimed at a younger audience than what the comic book is. They missed a lot of the core elements of that first, and this is kind of like a mini review of it, I guess, but the core elements of that first crossover between the Turtles and the Batman universe, where you got this, the best part of the movie was that Shredder Batman fight that happens in the first 20 minutes of it. Really neat. The animation's okay. Once again, it's kind of that theme with these animated movies where it's like some budget got cut somewhere, or a studio animation department changed. I don't know what it is. But that fight scene was really cool to watch, just the two kind of going toe to toe. But then the rest of the movie is about the mutated villains, which you got in that first book. I don't know. I really like that you saw Michelangelo just in awe of all this, and there's a lot of bright moments. But the stuff that they should have focused on, I think, it would have been the Raphael and Batman connection that the two had, where they are both orphans in a way. Raphael wasn't, and I think they kind of touched on the IDW reboot of TMNT by saying that he's kind of different from the rest of his brothers. He's more distant from them. And that's where Batman and him connected, because he saw that he lost his parents at a young age. So he's also very disconnected from the rest of the Bat family in that manner. So they missed that. They very lightly did the Damian versus Raphael fight, where he's kind of breaking their arms and shit. So that wasn't there. Splinter wasn't even in the movie. And that was another thing where Batman fought Splinter. Like, he takes down the Turtles easily in the comics, just like he does in this movie. But then when he fights Splinter, it's more like they're even on that. And it makes you wonder, like, like if Splinter were younger, maybe he would have been able to take on the Batman. Or maybe not, because he wouldn't have been as experienced as he is in his older age. So there's a lot of those little things that I miss from the comic books that weren't in the movie. That being said, would I have enjoyed the movie more if I hadn't read the original comic books? Probably, and definitely if I were younger. I think this is a good one for kids. The mutated creatures aren't scary at all, like in the comic book. They're very cartoony, very goofy, very simple. There's a moment in which even, you get mutations that weren't in the comic book that you didn't expect, and it doesn't follow the plot, quite as closely as the comics, and that's not a good or a bad thing in this case. It's not like Red Sun, where it's so integral to the original work. Yeah, those bright spots, though, that I think should have been there, unfortunately weren't there.
I agree with all of that. It definitely was aimed towards a younger crowd. What I saw from it, I was very involved in my phone and wondering, how am I going to wake up tomorrow without an alarm clock? Because who has alarm clocks, right? It's all on our phone. So, yes, a lot of that same sentiment. I couldn't get past the design of the turtles and their heads. It was just very simplistic, I guess is the way to put that. But it's like somebody just drew an oval with two eyes and said, there's Donatello's head.
Yeah, I didn't have as much of an issue with that, but it did not try to adapt what Freddie Williams did for the comic books. And that's, once again, what makes me nervous about Red Sun, in which, if this had been done, I think during that period where Bruce Timm was the head of the animation, they would have at least tried to replicate that comic book style. As difficult as it may be, like in Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, it's still, they were able to make it work in that adaptation. But in this case, they were just trying to make their own style in this. People liked the animated movies, so it seemed to have worked out just fine. But I think I did miss that Freddie Williams the third design, and obviously these weren't for us. Even when you look at Batman, he does look very stiff and a little bit weird in a lot of scenes. And they ended up going with the Batgirl New 52 design, so they kind of mixed that in there as well, so they didn't try to make that their own. So it's kind of a mishmash of different designs and that don't quite work well together.
Exactly like you said, if we hadn't gotten that amazing comic book prior, that story that we really loved and stuck with us, I think we would have enjoyed this movie a little bit more. But definitely geared towards kids. It'd be something fun to watch with Leo when he gets older, because I think he'll really enjoy it. And there was still enough in there for us not to lose our minds, like Baby Shark or Cocomelon.
Well, the part that I did lose my mind on is they called him Ra's al Ghul in this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? It's Ra's al Ghul. Even in the comic book that this is based on, Leonardo, there's a panel, and he doesn't know who Ra's al Ghul is, but he keeps hearing Batman say Ra's al Ghul. And he says, so who is this racial ghoul? But it's spelled like a racist, Racial.
Right.
And then ghoul. So that made me laugh, because I'm like, he thinks it's just this mega racist villain, this racial ghoul.
This racial
And that's when Batman says Racial Ghul. And so even the comic tells you how to pronounce the fucking name. But in this, they, I guess, ignored that fucking panel along with the artwork, and they say Ra's al Ghul the whole time. And there is one line that Batman says, and they didn't catch it, but the voice actor calls him Ra's al Ghul. But then the movie continues and he reverts back to what they end up calling him in this. So I'm like, that's kind of funny that they didn't catch that in editing, or I don't know if the voice actor himself is, whoever voices Batman, is used to saying Ra's al Ghul. But I thought that was kind of funny that kind of slipped in there.
Right.
And you thought it was Kevin Conroy at first.
I did. I didn't hear as much as I would have liked to, again, because of all the drama in my life. But yeah, he did a good job, trying to emulate him, I felt.
It was Troy Baker who voiced him in Arkham Origins, the video game. Also did the Joker in this and in Arkham Origins, and we felt that he's the closest impression to Mark Hamill that we've seen yet. And if you're going to try to sound like the Joker or Batman, you got to sound like Kevin Conroy or Mark Hamill. Those are the voices for Batman.
But with that, guys, we will wrap up our podcast for this week. A lot of great content. Thank you guys for sticking it out all the way to the end with us.
And thank you so much for once again making July our highest downloads in the show's history. Thank you for telling a friend and for staying subscribed to the podcast. If this is your first episode, we hope you found something in today's show to enjoy, and hopefully we'll see you next week. I've been Rocket Daniel.
I am Emperor Palpa Kelli.
And Brokehead Core.
All will be well.